Welcome to the garden. Today I'll be pruning and planting out some common jade stem cuttings. This one in the jar has been rooting in water for months and is long overdue to be planted out in soil. Common jade can get extremely top heavy, so pruning it every now and then can relieve some of that stress on the plants. This one on the right I've had to stake recently because it was starting to lean, but I think it's corrected beautifully, so I'm going to remove the stake, and today we're going to be pruning this smaller plant. If we look down low, there's a branch that's leaning a lot further than all the rest. This even has roots growing along the stem, which make it a perfect candidate for a stem cutting. Common jade has a fairly thick stem, so I'm using my hardy pruners, and I'm going to support the cutting, and I want to cut right next to the stem in this case. The stem will actually die back to a node. So if we were to cut up here, it would die back to this node, and if we cut here, it's going to die back to this node. You can see that made a really nice clean cut. It's good practice to let this heal for 24 hours before we plant it out. However, if we use dry potting soil, we can actually plant them today and then water them in tomorrow after they've healed for 24 hours. So the first thing I want to do is check my depth. I've chosen a terracotta pot because jade are very top heavy. Normally this would be just about the perfect depth, but a lot of these roots were above the soil line. So I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter. I'll cut right below this last root. And again, we're cutting in the middle of a node. That way, if it does die back, it'll go all the way to this node. So it should leave these roots intact. Since we've cut this a little lower, this branch is probably going to be under the soil. So I'm going to remove it. And that's a nice little cutting all of its own. So now I'll recheck our depth. I want those roots to be under the soil, so that looks perfect. The soil line should be right about where that top root is. So I'm actually going to remove this bottom leaf. I'm going to try to make a little jade forest here. Get our water cutting. Now we could stop right here, as that looks like a pretty good container, but I want to take a couple more cuttings to really make it a jade forest. So I am going to leave these two, but I am going to top them to hopefully keep the growth nice and low. Removing these top leaves will promote growth from lower down and sturdy up those stems. So to complete our little jade forest, I'm going to just prep these new cuttings by removing the bottom leaves. Trying to space these out a little bit in the pot so that they're not quite so crowded. Now I'm going to backfill in with dry potting soil. This is my succulent mix with a little bit of extra perlite for drainage. And just look at how lush that is. Wow, that looks amazing. We'll save the leaf cuttings. If you want, you can nestle them into the soil stem first. And with our new jade forest, I'm going to be treating these basically like a bonsai. I'll prune them back once they get established and thin out some of these leaves. I hope to kind of shape them and train them so that they look more like a tree. So I hope you stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.